But I want you guys, I want you to really take close attention to this guy that's going to pull up right now, because he is the man that I think is going to be the most important part to your success. This is a guy that knows everything there is to know about working creatively for investors, because he's also an investor. He does everything that we're talking about wanting to do, options, subject to, and he does it with underneath the guise of being an actual real estate attorney. So with that being said, I want you guys to welcome Mr. Brian Gormley. Now, you guys will also be able to ask questions, so just raise your hand. My son will bring the mic around and ask questions. But first and foremost, Brian, introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay, well, I appreciate all of you guys coming out on a Saturday in the summer. Charles usually asks me to come to these things during the holidays. You know, he's like, oh, January 2nd, July 5th, the day after Thanksgiving, everyone's going to be there. Like, wait a second, Charles. Everyone's taking off those days, including me. So I'm a real estate agent, broker, a real estate attorney. I've done quite a bit of investing as well, and I have a title company license. So I kind of see the big picture, and in attacking these deals, I do tend to wear a lot of hats. I have a lot of foreclosure defense, short sales. I've done subject twos. I've done rehabs. I've done wholesaling. Pretty much anything that you would think about doing. I might have an opinion about. So I'm happy to field questions later on. Mm-hmm. But I'm just honored and appreciate the opportunity to come and engage these issues, because I love doing real estate.
Now, one of the things I want Brian to tell you about is a deal that he's actually working on himself of a property that he has, and he sold it by way of option, right?
Sold it by way of option. You're talking about the deal right here in Baltimore.
Right. Tell me about that deal.
Okay. So I have a dog property. And I teach options class, right? And so rent to own is a great strategy, I think, if you're either on the buying side, the wholesaling side, or the selling side. I bought a property in 2006 right here in Baltimore, and it's a dog property. I went through 3 contractors before getting the rehab done. I bought at $150. I was supposed to only spend $65. The property at that point in time, this is pre-recession, was going to be worth $300 when we fixed it up. I ended up putting in $325 by the time we were done. 3 contractors later, the only option I really had was just to rent it and wait. I still own that property, and right now I've got somebody who is lease optioning it from me, and he's paying me, I've got a $1,200 mortgage, he's paying me $1,800 a month. And he's trying to do Airbnb. I gave him a long-term option because I do not even want to think about this property anymore.
So how long-term?
As long as it takes him to pay the mortgage to zero. So I'm fine. If he wants to buy this property today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, as long as he's paying the mortgage down for me, I'm totally cool with that.
Now listen to what he just said. You can actually do options for 5, 10 years. Controlling the property on the buy side and or sell side. Now, how did you protect yourself in that transaction?
Well, anytime he defaults, he loses his option.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already defaulted. So I could just give him a notice of default because his Airbnb model isn't working quite as well as he wanted. So I could just give him a default, and that's it. And 30-day notice, and he's out of there.
This stuff works. We're not here just throwing theory out to you guys. This stuff works. Talk about how you could use these strategies as a way to deal with short sales. You're an expert on short sales.
So you can't really do an option on a short sale,
right.
But you can control property with an option, and
right.
That's really, really great. So if you're talking about being a wholesaler, which I know many of you are, then you might want to put an option as opposed to a standard purchase agreement contract on a property. Why would you want to put an option on the property? Well, first and foremost, you're going to control that property. So you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can rent it out and get the spread. You can try to flip it, or you can rent it and then flip it. You can put a rent-to-own buyer in there, make the spread each month, and then the capital gain when the buyer actually exercises their option. You have so many different opportunities and options, if you will, pardon the pun, but you've got to control that property.
And
So
go ahead.
it's great. It's great because you don't have a purchase. Normally, you're usually typically taught, right, as a wholesaler, get the property under contract, get the property under contract, and then you got your inspection period for 15 days where you got to find your end buyer and flip the house. Well, with an option, you're controlling that property for 1 year, 2 years, however long you've got the option. Maybe you build in an extension on that option at your option to extend, right? As long as you're making the monthly mortgage payments, you're good to go. If you stop, then all you're really at risk for, well, if you have a lease agreement, you may be at risk for more, but the option, the only thing you're at risk for is the option consideration, which is non-refundable.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, can you wholesale the option? It's the same. Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. You're flipping. That's exactly what you would do to flip. You would flip the right to buy the property. You have an equitable title, equitable interest in the property right now with your option. In other words, you have a right to buy the property, a right to control the property. Okay, you can flip that option for a fee. So a lot of times I'll use the example in the option class that I teach. Let's say you have an option for $100 on 5 properties for $50,000 per property, right? So you've got $500 out there. You're controlling $250,000 for $500. Mm-hmm. A year from now, each of those properties is say they're worth $60,000. That's a $50,000 gain on a $500 investment. You flip the option to buy to somebody else. Maybe you're not going to sell. They're not going to buy at $60,000, maybe market value. Maybe you leave a little skin on the game. Sell for $55,000, $58,000, right? Well, your option's at $50. You're selling the option for $58. You just built in $8,000 per property. Times 5 is a $40,000 gain for a $500 investment. Pretty sweet deal, right? But that's exactly right. You would be flipping the option contract as opposed to flipping the regular purchase agreement contract.
So basically what he's saying is that if you get it at a price today and the value of that property goes up tomorrow, you can capture that value by using an option as a way for a long-term gain.
Okay, Bland, I have a question here. I'm hearing that you have a lot of different alternatives or strategies to use, but my question is, do you have because rent, flip, or rent to own, do you have a template or somewhere you gauge as to which is the best way to use this?
So each deal is going to be different, and that's the key for you. Your value add is quarterbacking the deal and analyzing the deal and saying, okay, this is how we should structure the deal. Right? That's your value add. I do have forms. Charles has them, and he has circulated them. Presumably, you can get them if that's part of the package today for a rent-to-own contract and an option contract. Yeah.
Yes, and then
Kind of a related question. When you're doing an option, do you actually have? When you're doing an option, do you actually attach to that the terms of a purchase contract? I think you were saying earlier that it's just a one-page form, but I mean, aren't there more details?
Well, that's just a straight option. So what's your question? I'm going to let Brian answer that is, if the actual execution is going to be a sale, you can absolutely do that. But go ahead, Brian.
What Charles said. The option agreement is generally a 1-page or 2-page document. It outlines the basic terms of the option, meaning here's the strike price, here's the length of term that you have an option, here's the option consideration. And generally you would reduce that down to a full-blown purchase agreement for a lender if you're going to actually buy when you exercise the option.
So it wouldn't be done in advance?
Not usually, no. No, because usually, again, purchase agreement is going to say, well, here's the settlement date, here's all that, and you haven't exercised your option yet. Do I have samples of the option contract? Yes, I just meant, yes, we provided
Yes.
templates, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We need to update.
Go ahead.
So I had a question, but I kind of want to add a little follow-up question to hers because it's a really good question. If someone says an option contract for this purchase price, this, that, and then when it's time to exercise, they give you a purchase, let's say you give the seller a purchase agreement with all kinds of clauses that they're like, yo, wait a minute, that wasn't, what happens in that situation? That's kind of her follow-up question. And then my question was going to be, can you talk as much about PIFA as possible, the Protection for Homeowners and Foreclosures Act, because Charles touched on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I have stayed away from them as much as possible, but I know it's an untapped ocean here in Maryland, and if I knew how to navigate in those waters, I'd like to be able to. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, PIFA is a challenge, and usually you try to stay away from the challenges. In terms of the first question, if the homeowner says, "Oh, wait a second, my property is worth $60,000 and not $50,000. I want to renegotiate these terms," or they just don't want to execute a purchase agreement sometime in the future because of whatever extra terms or whatever. It depends on how you're going to finance the deal. Generally, an institutional lender is going to want a traditional purchase agreement. You should be able to just go off your option and the notice that you gave to the seller exercising that option, and that should be sufficient. But ultimately, if he decides to not be cooperative, then you're going to have to sue for specific performance in court.
Now, the answer to the question is it depends on the situation. So if you have a situation like you just mentioned, the option is the actual contract with the exception of the date and the date in stone of when it's going to be strike point. But anytime during the time period, you can execute the option. That's in the contract. They got to go through with it.
Right, but if you have a purchase and sale agreement that says like, all right, seller will pay wood destroying organism inspection and this and the things that were not covered, and there's probably a million other subtleties having to do with a tenant or this or that. And I guess probably it would depend on the situation.
Well, now when you're throwing in a tenant, you're throwing in other documents.
Okay.
Because you're talking about now adding the lease with option to buy and so on. We're talking about if it was just a straight option.
Right. Even with that, I was just using that as an example. Just
Okay.
little subtleties and curveballs that sometimes a one-page option contract might not cover. And then, like, for example, an investor purchase and sale agreement versus a Maryland realtor contract is a whole, it's a whole other thing. So just saying that the seller agrees to fill out a purchase and sale agreement, it's probably wiser, I would think, I've never done them, but to have a purchase and sale agreement, like she said, that you will sign this agreement if I choose to move forward. Like, I don't know if that's done.
Well, it can be done, and you correct me if I'm wrong. It can be done if you feel as though that's the result that you want to come.
Yeah. I think it's a great point. I think it would be bad faith for the seller to not sign a traditional standard purchase agreement at that point, and they would lose in court. Yeah, but I think it's a great point, and in theory they could raise that objection, and at that point, you're going to have to negotiate and work things out.
Well, I'm going to get my lawyer on.
Right.
It's an advantage not to have that agreement because really you can present whatever kind of purchase and sale agreement you want.
But if it's deviating from the business terms that were identified in the option, I mean, if you're saying, well, now I need 3% concession, and now I need home warranty, and that really wasn't contemplated. Yeah, I think for PIFA, I was planning on dodging that question, but I'll take a stab at it. So, this is the Protection of Homeowners and Foreclosure Act. Basically, the sort of the high level view of this for folks who are not familiar is if you can't be an investor, meaning buying a contract, and a foreclosure consultant under the statute. Okay, so you want to avoid, if you're an investor, which means a rehabber, a wholesaler, or anything along those lines, to be deemed a foreclosure consultant. How do you become a foreclosure consultant? By representing in any way possible on your website, in your marketing materials, in oral interactions with the seller, that you can help them avoid foreclosure or anything along those lines. Any kind of representation along those lines. So, and if you do, then you can actually get a fee, but you've got to give notices that are capable of rescission for the seller, just a whole slew of stuff. And it only is triggered by primary residences, in other words, people who own and live in that property, and 60 days of delinquency on the mortgage.
Or more. And that's the key.
Right.
60 days known late on their mortgage or more, or they live in the property.
Both.
I mean, both.
Not and or, both.
Right.
Do you offer consultation in these types of deals outside of this for a fee, obviously?
Yeah, I can. Usually, just the short way of getting around it is get a real estate agent in between you and the seller.
That's what normally happens, because at that point, that's when we get a real estate agent, and we're thinking in terms of short sales. But he just hit it right on the nail. Once you hit that 60 days mark or further, you got to let it go. That's the key.
Let it go or get some other representation for the
Exactly.
seller, even if it's nominal representation. Because the definition of agent, and I'm not talking about real estate agent, The definition of agent is extremely broad. So anyone that is like a buddy of yours, that'll be considered an agent of yours.
Right.
And it'll be construed as all of you. So you've really got to get, some sort of arm's length relationship to represent the seller to say, yeah, this person, that's what the legislature is really concerned about, is investors taking advantage of homeowners who have equity and they're stripping the equity out.
You guys know how PIFA came about?
People taking advantage of
It was an investor that took advantage of a state trooper's wife, a widow. And the investor promised the widow that she could move in the property once he purchased it. He promptly kicked her out. She went to a state's attorney. She went to an attorney, and next thing you knew, PIFA was out there. But it started from an investor kicking out a state trooper's wife.
So if you are an agent, is it best just to have a separate agent deal with that altogether? If you're a real estate agent or licensed in any way, like if you go into that and it's that good of a deal, would you just deal with one portion and they would deal with the other?
You can't wear two hats on one transaction. You got to go on one side of the line or the other. So you're either an agent and you're representing the seller, or you're an investor and you're disclosing that you have an agent license.
I have a question. So, getting back to the option, how do you determine the purchase price? What percentage are you increasing every
So
year?
you're talking about like if it's 2 years in the future
Or
3
3
years in
years.
the future? Great question.
So it's the Wild West. That's why I love options. You can do it any way you want. You can do a formula. You can do a fixed price. You can do it based on appraised value at the time you exercise the option. It's up to you and the seller to
The
negotiate
latter
that.
one is what we usually do, based on face value, based on time when we exercise the option.
Is it based on time?
And when
Time
we exercise
value?
the value of it based on when we exercise the option.
So for example, another way of formula would be, $100,000 today and for the next year, but from month, 13 to 24, it's 110,000, and then 120, it steps up, et cetera, et cetera. But appraised value is very fair to the
Right.
seller, because the seller is going to feel like, well, I'm getting market value, and the buyer's lender is
There you
also
go.
going to need to do an appraisal anyway, so it's going to fit all together.
So you can leave that open and just do
Appraised
appraisal
value.
5 years from
You
now?
can do appraised value
Yep.
at the time of exercise of option. That's perfectly fine.
I know.
But you're not, now as an investor, you're not getting any equity then, right?
Right.
You're just controlling the deal. So maybe in that case, you would be looking for cash flow while you're you're subletting the property. Yeah, because you're not going to hold on to a property for 12 months unless you're going to live in it. But I assume as an investor, you're not going to just hold on to the property and keep it vacant.
No.
So you're looking for cash flow in the meantime. And
Let's
then-
talk on that subject. The subject of taking on a property and taking on it for 5-10 years. What is your best way of doing that?
Well, I chafen under subject to. I teach subject to. I love the concept of subject to. I'm a defendant right now in a subject to deal that I closed as a title company. And that's because it was supposed to be a fix and flip with the rehabber. There was a basement leak issue that wasn't disclosed to the buyer. The buyer tried to get the seller's insurance to cover it. The seller refused to cooperate, and so it blew out his deal. So we had $30,000 extra money on a relatively tight deal, and so he just stopped paying the mortgage. Guess what happened? The seller's credit hit the tank. They start paying to get the mortgage paid because it's their credit after all. Remember, on a subject to deal that's affected, not the buyers.
Right.
And then what happens next? The seller sues everybody.
And guess what's the number one way subject twos fails? When the person doesn't make the payments.
That's it.
That's it. When you're supposed to make payments and you don't make the payments. That's the number one way subject twos fail.
So it's hard to build on Charles' points. It's hard to control a deal for 5 or 10 years. To me, subject to is not the way. I mean, it happens in commercial space all the time, perfectly fine. In residential, if you're going into it thinking you're going to be in the deal for 5 to 10 years, I will not do that deal as a title company
Not
if
on
you're
subject to,
going to
right.
do a subject to. You can do a land installment contract, or you can do an option. Those are probably your best two approaches. And so option is, I'm sorry for cutting you off, is just a straight option, or is a rent. You could build it as a rent to own, which is effectively the same thing.
Yes.
If you do the option for sale, if you do the option for sale, we know property values are going to go up, but can you set a price in this and just set something for where the buyer, and you just tell the buyer that at closing you'll add 5% to the deal as a way of compensating for them for the value goes up?
You can do whatever you want.
That's the beauty about a contract. It's the meeting of the minds.
It's a business term.
Exactly.
It's just a business term. Now, a way you sell rent-to-owns, if you're the seller, is you sell it to a rent-to-own buyer as, well, you're going to be paying, down the purchase price each month because you're going to get a credit, right? We all know this. Part of your monthly payments is a credit towards the purchase price, but you're also getting built-in equity because the equity is going to go up and up. The value is going to go up and up, so you're getting built-in equity if you have a fixed price. So it's a great marketing tool if you're on the sell side to not do that. But if you want to do that, it's perfectly fine.
So have you ever experienced a due on sale, and if so, what was the circumstances around that due on sale?
So the question is due on sale. So in a mortgage, for those of you who don't know, there's a provision in every standard mortgage agreement that says if you as the seller, this is the bank talking, if you as the homeowner decide to sell this property, we want to be paid off. We don't want you to sell the property and keep our mortgage outstanding. In other words, we don't want you to do a subject to. Why? Because we took on your credit, not the buyer's credit who takes on the mortgage. Okay? So as a result, in order to put some teeth into that, the lender is going to say, okay, if you do a subject to deal, we have the right to accelerate the loan. And if you don't pay off our loan, if we give you notice, then we can foreclose. I've had one instance where that has happened, and that was pre-recession.
And I've had one, the same situation. One instance, and the reason why, because the person didn't make the payment.
If they're not making the payments, they're going to get a foreclosure anyway. Mm-hmm. And in this case, for whatever reason, the mortgage company found out about it and said, no, we want, we're going to foreclose. So it is I tell everyone, it's a very, very low risk. Number one, that they're ever going to find out. Number two, that they're even going to care. And number three, even if they do find out and they care and they take action on it, if you're doing subject to the right way, you're going to be in and out of the deal by the time they can actually effectuate a foreclosure. So it's not going to matter.
So now let's tell them what is the right way.
2 years is too long for a subject to, number one. It's a fix and flip, short-term strategy. Mm-hmm. I tend to put these properties into a land trust. You save on transfer liquidation tax that way. You also can stall the lender from doing a foreclosure because if they ask, you just say, oh yeah, the property's in a land trust and it's beneficially owned by the owner, the prior owner, the one that's your borrower, and there's a carve-out in a federal law, Garn-St. Germain is what it's called in case you want to look it up, that allows you to do this. You can't accelerate the loan.
Garn-St. Germain.
So you're just gonna forestall any sort of foreclosure.
Basically, what Garn-St. Germain says that the owner of a property can, without invoking due on sales, put the property into a trust.
So when you do that, and you're in and out in 6 months because you're just rehabbing the property, or you could rehab it, put a tenant in it, and then refinance it.
Exactly.
That's fine. Just don't keep the seller's mortgage out there for that. For more than like 6 to 8 months. Definitely no longer than a year. Because why? Even if you're paying on the mortgage, the seller is going to go out and try to get more credit somewhere. They're going to try to go and buy another house or get an expensive car or whatever, and they're going to realize, well, wait a second. My mortgage isn't paid over here, and that's still counting against my debt to income. And the only way I can get that to not count against my DTI is if this mortgage is paid off. So then they start getting ticked off because they can't buy another house, or they can't get the car that they want, or whatever other credit extension that they're trying to get, right? And then they get ticked off, and that's when they start calling an attorney and saying, what the heck?
Have either of you had the opportunity to deal with assumable mortgages, or where you could take over the mortgage with using somebody else's credit instead of yours or your business's?
So assuming the mortgage, the lender is actually going to look at your credit. So that is a very good distinction. Assuming the mortgage is generally prohibited in most deeds of trust nowadays. It was more prevalent in the 80s and 90s. Generally speaking, you're not going to be able to do that. But if you did do that, then your credit is you're going to take it on. So it's your credit. It's not the seller's anymore. And they will do due diligence on you as a credit matter. It's in effect the same as getting a new loan out, because they're going to do everything that a lender would do to help you buy a house.
So a question about the land trust thing. If you buy a property subject to, you have the owner deeded into a trust, are you becoming the beneficial interest and telling the bank that the owner is, or is the owner going to be the beneficial interest and you have some kind of contract that allows you to assume it when you want?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay. Hey, it was a scary question to ask, but hey, y'all are sitting up there.
Great question.
I know. I put it out there. I invited it.
Okay.
So the way it works is that you have a homeowner deed a property to a land trust, of which they are the beneficial owner.
They will be. Okay, so they're still the owner.
Then they assign that beneficial ownership interest to you.
And it's
Okay.
kept in a drawer.
And you keep that in a drawer.
And
you
I caught it.
You give the land trust with them showing as
When
as
you
beneficial
need it,
owner.
you have it.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you.
You got to be the one, Victor, don't you?
Yeah.
So in a subject to, if the owner is making the mortgage payments and the interest has been transferred to the investor, and the investor doesn't make the improvements in the property, but the owner is still making the mortgage payments.
They shouldn't be.
And the subject to the owner, the investor has taken over the role of making the payments.
Okay.
So they need to be the ones who are paying the mortgage, the investor. And if they're not, that's when the seller gets ticked off and starts suing.
Right, that's when it happens.
Okay.
That's the number one reason why it triggers, because the investor stops making the payment.
Okay.
So
Thank
what we do in that situation, combine it with a land trust, and I just given you all the secrets that I employ here, and I don't know why I'm running my mouth like this. In the land trust,
Come on.
in the land trust, I put a clause. Not everyone does this. I put a clause to get the seller comfortable, and that is a reversionary interest in the beneficial interest in the property. So in other words, I tell the seller, hey, look, you're completely covered. Why? Because if I miss the mortgage payments, this land trust reverts back to you. So you don't even have to sue me anymore. If I miss a mortgage payment, bam, the property goes right back to you, improvements and all. I have every incentive in the world to make the mortgage payment because why? I've invested money in this deal and I don't want to just throw it away. And it's really easy for you to reclaim the property.
I got a question. I have a wholesale deal that's coming up actually, and it's in a trust, but the person have 9 people on title in that trust. Do everyone have to sign off on that?
So sorry, property's in a trust.
Yes, it has 9 people in the title.
So
9
only the
family
trust,
members.
So are you gonna sell a beneficial interest in the trust, or are you gonna sell the property?
Well, I wasn't a wholesaler, but it's like 9 people, you know.
How is the buyer taking title? How's the end buyer taking title?
These in the LLC.
Okay. So you're going to presumably you're going to enter into a contract between
Yes.
you and the trust, and only the trustee has to sign that contract, not all the beneficial owners of the trust.
Oh, okay.
Just the trustee.
That's the question I had. You answered my question because I was like, it's 9 people on title. How would that work?
Only the person on the title has to sign. And that should be the trustee. That's the whole point of a trust. You got beneficial owners. They're not involved in selling the property in terms of John Cancock and selling the property.
Okay. All right, cool.
Just the trustee. Just the person on title. We'll let the microphone walk its way around.
So in that case, and the reason I ask is I did have a land trust, and are you recording the land trust in that situation with a subject to? Because, my bank, when I tried to refinance property in a land trust, would not allow me to keep it in a land trust.
Yeah, land trusts are hard for conventional lenders to fund. There are a couple smaller lenders that are willing to do it, but they've got to get comfortable with it. And most banks will not do it. That's right. Most of them will want it in your LLC. So you've got to transfer the property out of the trust. into either your name or into an LLC. Generally speaking, for a conventional lender, generally speaking, not everybody. And if you don't use a conventional lender, obviously you're okay then too.
But in this case, if we're saying the carve out, transferring the funds, the property into the trust, you're for that transaction?
Of course. Of course, that's a deed to the trust. Yeah. The seller's bank was not aware of the transfer from the seller to the trust. And that transaction intrinsically is exempt anyway from the due on sale clause, because that transaction is from seller to trustee of land trust with seller, same seller, as beneficial owner.
Which doesn't legally trigger gone sanction.
That's right. The bank can look at that, and you can give them the land trust, and it says the beneficial owner of the land trust is the seller. Bank, go away because this is exempt.
Exactly.
That's what I was saying before about forestalling, buying yourself some more time to figure out what you're going to do with the property if the lender decides to be ornery.
Is it the same contract when you're transferring the beneficiary from the original owner to yourself, or is it just in the land trust, and then you have a separate contract in which they do that to you?
Separate assignment. Your son's getting his exercise today.
I know.
He must have had a big lunch.
I think my question's redundant, because the earlier example was because you were refinancing the property.
Right.
You had to take it out of the land trust
Right.
to satisfy the lender.
Right.
Whereas if you just transfer it, then Garn St. Germain protects you.
Yeah, we're talking two different lenders: the seller's lender versus your lender as the buyer. If you're holding on to the property, yeah, that's right. Sorry for the confusion. I think we had a question over here. Yes, right over here.
Who's responsible for the taxes?
Great question.
As well as the options.
So if you want your property not to go to tax sale, then the owner of the property is responsible for paying the taxes. Okay? If you normally how these things work in a subject to, the seller is washing their hands of the property. So for all intents and purposes, you own the property as the investor. So you need to pay taxes, insurance, the mortgage, or, it's subject to the mortgage going to foreclosure, the property going to foreclosure from the tax sale, or if you're uninsured, you're going to be up a creek if something were to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Come on, guys, you're making this too easy for this man.
He's right.
Would you put language in the contract about the taxes being the responsibility?
No, you wouldn't, because if you're buying the property, it goes kind of without saying that you're going to assume all indicia of ownership, including paying the taxes.
Exactly.
If I don't own the property anymore, I'm not expecting to have to pay the taxes. Why would I ever pay the taxes if I'm not the owner of the property?
Yeah, that's an unwritten rule that every investor that does this know that if they don't pay the taxes, they're going to lose the subject to. So you have to pay the taxes and insurance.
I got another deal. The guy, his house is free and clear, but he owes like 30-something thousand in taxes. So,
how much is the property worth?
Exactly, because it doesn't matter.
That's a perfect deal for you.
Yes.
What is the property worth though?
Well, right now it's only worth maybe about 170, 180.
Only 170, 180.
Well, that's equity there.
But the problem is, okay, I'm willing to wholesale it, but as a cash buyer deal, because I never ran into this right here, first owner must taxes. Do the end buyer, do they have to pay it, or me as the wholesale have to pay it before footer, because they don't have the money to pay his taxes.
Well, what are you selling to the end buyer for?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to disclose that, but.
Well, the answer to your
in a room full of wholesalers, you're not going to disclose your wholesale fee? Come on, man.
I'm not going to disclose that what I'm selling.
This is all speculation. This is all in concept.
I'm going to say hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
100K.
100K. So out of that 100K.
But the cash buyer, so do we have to pay taxes, or I have to be the one to pay the tax? Because I never ran into that situation before.
What is your contract with the seller?
Just the regular $100,000 price. With the seller price, I sold him.
Okay, so
for someone for the seller.
Yeah. What do you got under contract with the seller?
I really don't want to disclose that.
Oh.
I really don't want to disclose that.
We can't read your mind. We don't know what the
Okay.
address is.
So let's assume. Let's assume it's $50,000.
Now. I'm saying $50K.
Okay, 50K.
Let's assume it's $50,000.
Okay.
Out of that $50,000, $30,000 is going to go to pay the taxes.
Yes.
The rest, minus transactional fees, is going to pay the seller, right?
Yes.
So the seller's going to walk away with a few dollars.
Yes.
The difference between the 50 and the 100 is your wholesale fee.
I know, but I'm not stuck on have to pay the seller tax because he's saying I had to pay the
I just
tax.
said the seller is paying the taxes out of the 50.
Make sure they know that.
Yeah, because he's like, well, he thinking I have to be the one to pay the tax. I said, that's not correct.
No.
I said, I'm not paying the seller got to pay, the new seller got to pay that.
You don't have to pay the taxes. The key to that deal, the key to the structure of that deal is the money that's available.
Right.
If the money that's available is there for you to contribute to it, or will it not be there? Will you lose the deal if he has to contribute to it? So you have to make a business decision based on what that seller is willing to do and not do. And then that business decision is based on whether or not the numbers work or don't work.
He only live in this country, so
he's going to lose the property anyway.
Yeah, so it's yeah.
So you got
exactly.
25? You got it for $25,000. I know it. 25.
He wants to give away the. It's too hot down there. Take this mic, somebody.
This is a fireside chat after all, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to ask an open-ended question. What are some strategies or little things you do that you think not enough investors are taking advantage of, and what are the mistakes that you see a lot of wholesalers making that make you cringe and you just wish they would stop doing that?
So I don't know what you paid for the price of admission here. I do have a coaching program. We discussed that question.
I'd love to hear about it.
Mistakes wholesalers make are not understanding the law of contracts. So, to the point that we just, with the question that was just asked, you need to understand what you're doing when you get into a contract and when you get into an assignment. And if you don't understand that, I would say even seasoned wholesalers don't fully understand the legalities of what they're doing. They just know, well, I'm trying to get a spread. But when it comes to actually documenting that properly, people do make a lot of mistakes, including finagling or finessing how much you disclose to your end buyer. So for wholesalers, that's the biggest thing. Trying to get the end buyer on the hook without disclosing necessarily how much money you're making, and still getting them on the deal and being willing to settle. And that's something that they struggle with. Should I just do an ABC double close? So I'm going to buy for 25 and kick in another 5 to my seller to pay the taxes, and then resell for 100. Yes, that's economically inefficient because I got 2 sets of transfer recordation taxes to pay plus transactional funding. But my end buyer doesn't know that I'm making $70,000 spread, or do I trust my end buyer enough that he's going to see the wholesale fee at some point?
Exactly.
So is he going to go through with the deal, or is he going to cramp down on me, right, when he sees the wholesale fee and says, oh, I did an inspection, there's a few more things that need work on here than I expected. I'm going to pay 100. I'm going to pay 50, 35, maybe, or whatever it's going to be. So there are some ways to get those end buyers on the hook contractually without disclosing it, and then follow up with another document that reduces it down to a more fleshed out agreement that I try to do. But it comes down to, at the end of the day, you can't force them to go to closing. So, they're only on the hook for their EMD. If that's
so most investors don't do enough disclosure and transparency.
I think the temptation for wholesalers and investors is to err on the wrong side. So they tend to disclose too little and try to schmooze over, like the deal that I am getting sued for. I think the sellers knew what a subject to deal was. But could it have been fleshed out more? Maybe. And so when that doesn't happen because they want to just get the seller to sign, get the property under contract, and kick it back to your end buyer and make your spread. If you don't care about people, then your temptation is just to look to the money. And when you do that, you let greed take over, and that I guess is its own mistake, which I could talk to that too. But that's what happens, and that's when you're setting yourself up to get sued, to lose a deal, to lose credibility in the marketplace. I can tell you, I know wholesalers who I just don't even want to talk to because I know their credibility is shot. I don't even want to look at that. I don't want to spend the time looking at the deal because I know I know it's a waste of time. They've jacked up the price, or they're too fast and loose. I just don't like doing business with them. So that happens when you don't care about people. You got to focus on being a problem solver and helping people, and a little bit less on your bottom line. If you focus on being a problem solver, deals will come to you. People will refer you out to others. You will get business. You're a problem solver. You're looking for ways to help people, to be a servant. And if you as opposed to having the attitude of entitlement, greed, I just want my next paycheck, I got to go find somebody, and you might not think about it as go rob somebody, but that's kind of how it plays itself out, and I found that doesn't work quite so well.
So what paperwork do you use to have your buyers on the hook? Because it's always a game that's being played with end buyers.
It's not the only game. There's a game being played in this room today, too. And I'm on the losing end. Now, I don't understand how that's supposed to be.
Let's just use the referral of ABC closing. Let's just say that.
So ABC closing is easy, right? You get the property under contract. Just use your purchase agreement, right? With your drive a Mack truck through with a contingency. And then you're going to not assign that contract. You're going to use a sales contract to find your end buyer. That's an ABC deal. Now, you know that you're going to have to use transactional funds or fund yourself for that AB leg. There's 2 deals there, 2 closings, 2 deeds, 2 HUDs. A title company is not going to let your end buyer's money fund the AB deal.
Those days are over.
Those days are long done, right? Okay, so you got to arrange for transactional funding.
And in the hot markets where you're getting $90,000, $100,000 wholesale fees, that's the way to go, in my opinion.
If it's $90,000 or $100,000, that's what a lot of people do. Keep in mind that in D.C., if any of you invest in D.C., those are not unheard of wholesale fees, but if you're also buying at $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on the front end, and you've got significant transactional fees that go along with that are going to eat in, $15,000, $20,000 type fees that are going to eat into that. So that's fine. You might need to do that. It's something of something is a lot better than a lot of nothing. So
I don't know if you said that right.
I don't know. I said it right too. They know what I mean.
You're close.
A little of something is better than a lot of nothing.
There you go.
Is that better? A good amount of something is better than a lot of nothing. Right.
What are some of the best exit strategies just in case you can buy? You back out, you have
hold the bag. I mean, you got to have a strong contingency, and that's number one. Number two, you got to have a non-refundable EMD from your end buyer. That non-refundable EMD is gonna compensate you for the EMD you posted for the seller.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't tie that property up with that buyer until you get that EMD.
Absolutely.
Does that come from the wholesaler or the end buyer?
The second EMD comes from the end buyer. Your EMD comes to the seller comes from you, but you're basically just a pass through.
So should the earnest money deposit be part of the wholesaler's
Yes.
initial agreement?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, how is that written up?
Standard EMD. Standard provision.
That's it.
Standard provision, as well as an inspection.
Well, on all of I'll send you a copy of our flyer. All our flyers have all the requirements that we require from our buyers. EMD, title company, and so on and so on, and proof of funds and so on. So this is already known out in the general public that we must have this information, we must have these dollars from you in order for you to put contract on this property.
So you might want to try to put a 500 EMD or whatever, I'm just giving that amount as an example, with the seller, and then get more $5,000 EMD from your end buyer, right? And you're going to keep the difference. You're going to give up that $500 if your end buyer doesn't perform, and you can't get an extension, but at least you got $4,500 for the spread for your time and trouble. But you can't have the 5,000 be less than the 500.
Exactly.
Or you're at risk.
You're in the negative.
Okay.
I may have missed this earlier. What's the name of your title company?
So I have a title company license. I affiliate with several title companies. Right now, I'm channeling most of it through Brennan Title, but I do not own any title. I used to own a title company. I don't anymore. So you send the deal to me, and then I connect it with a title processor, and we close the deal.
Okay. How do I get your contact?
Just write in law office of Brian Gormley, and you're good to go.
What?
Contact information.
Law office.
Oh,
law office of Brian Gormley, and you email.
Go ahead.
I'll give you my email.
Yeah.
So it's Brian, BRIAN, at Gormley, GOR, M as in Mary, LEY, lawoffice.com. So Brian at gormleylawoffice.com. I'm barred in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. And I have title company license in all three of those jurisdictions. Yeah, you had a follow-up question from before. Yeah. You're still trying to get back to it. Go ahead.
Because I don't really like doing an A, B, and C transaction.
Sure.
So
neither do I.
I'm straight to it. If you don't like it, then
that's a better position in my view.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because you're transparent. That's transparency right there.
Right.
You're upfront with your end buyer. Say, look, here's my contract, and here's what I'm expecting as a wholesale fee. This is your all-in cost.
Right.
It doesn't change whether you're paying $300,000 to the seller or you're paying $280 and $20. You're still paying $300 total. So you either like the deal or you don't. But $300 is $300, no matter how you split it.
And truth be told, what we're describing isn't the rule; it's the exception to the rule. What we're describing is that that buyer that is looking at your dollars, and because of your dollars, he's being jealous. And because of him being jealous of your dollars, they can do all kinds of stuff to try to sting you. For example, he know your contract is going to close or be ready to close in 2 days. So he'll come to you and say, well, I'm not going to go closing with this contract unless you do this. So you have 2 days left to decide, do I take a discount on my fee or do I hold my ground and say, the hell with you? And it's a decision you're going to have to make.
A lot of it depends on if you've got other people lined up.
Exactly.
And you can bid them off against each other.
I got the mic in the back here.
That's what you want, but you don't always have it.
Exactly.
I want to talk a little bit about the deposit, Charles, because I know there's some gurus that says you give the seller $1. Some people say give them 10. When I do it, I always look at it as an embarrassment to offer somebody $10. So I want you guys to take on that deposit that you give that seller. What amount should you give so you don't embarrass that seller?
Well, I wouldn't put in $10. I wouldn't put in $100. That's kind of low. Depending on the purchase price of the deal, 500, 1,000, totally reasonable, especially around Baltimore. That's more than reasonable. That's a retail buyer buying a property at $60, $90, $150,000 is only going to put up $1,000 anyway, $1,500 maybe. They're not going to put up $5,000, so I don't think that you should either. That's just my opinion. It's a business point to answer your question. It's completely a business point, but in my view, you're embarrassing yourself if you put in, $10 or $100 or whatever.
Let me tell you what I would do. Now I'm not going to put 10, but
50 maybe.
No.
He's going to put a note on.
No.
He's going to say, "I'll pay you the EMD when the deal closes."
No, generally, my rule of thumb is I'm going to put at a minimum $100, and I give this a seller. And a lot of time when we're dealing with, because you got three different types of sellers: unsophisticated sellers, experienced sellers, and the sellers that you're dealing with that are with a real estate agent. So if I'm dealing with an unsophisticated seller, then I'm generally going to be doing $100 as that earnest money deposit. If I'm dealing with a sophisticated investor, I may go from 500, 1,000, depending on how good the deal is. If I'm dealing with a normal contract from HUD, I'm going to do whatever that contract states. Most of the time it's going to be more because I want to let that agent know how serious I am and I want that deal. So most of the time when I'm dealing with a situation with an agent, I'm going to put as much as I possibly can on the deal because I want my name to be in front of that contract, in that list of contract buyers.
Okay. So I wanted to skip to owner financing. How do you estimate what type of down payment you should give? I know you ask the person, what do you need? But how do you estimate what kind of down payment and then go along throughout the years and then break it down how much you want to give them in terms over the years?
It's completely a business question. There's nothing legal about that at all. So it's just subject to negotiation. I'm first going to look at the value of the property, then I'm going to look at the mortgage that's out there, and I'm going to look at my risk, and decide what I can do with this seller. Obviously less is better. If I can control a property for less money, I'm going to leverage it as much as I can. How much does the seller need? I mean, I would approach a seller and say, look, what do you need out of this deal? That was my first question, and then let them come to you, because you might be willing to offer this much, but they might say they only need this much. Well, then if you lead with that, then you just negotiated against yourself, and there was no point to it.
Exactly.
So it's 100% business term, depending on the deal and how much you're actually going to ultimately be paying them, and how long, and how much is it going to take to get this property off the market.
Lastly, the REOs, bank-owned properties, how do you start a process of that in trying to obtain a property that's an REO?
So there's a whole, hour and a half long class on REOs, and it's going to depend on if you're trying to flip them or you're trying to buy and rehab. My personal view is that almost all the REOs that are listed on MLS are overpriced because they've got an agent involved and they're picked over. So if there's any kind of deal there, it is going to have a lot of competition. I don't deal well with competition. I want to be the exclusive person in front of the seller. There are sites like Hubzu, Aquan runs Hubzu. There are other sites that are sort of auction-based sites, and you should take a look at those if you're really interested in REOs. Those tend to get less traffic, and you can better pick up a deal. I'd also go to the actual auction. So the problem with the auctions is that in the past, the lender would just bid the mortgage amount that's owed. And since almost everything in PG County and Baltimore City and Baltimore County was underwater, there really wasn't any play there. That's changed a little bit. So even if they bid as their initial bid the outstanding mortgage balance, there may be some equity, and you may be able to pick up a deal. The trade-off you have with those is you're doing a lot of front-end legwork that you may never recover, because you don't know what the value is until you really, you drive by, because you're not going to get in. So you've got to make an assumption about how much repair work there's, and then you got to pull the ARV, and then they may just have an opening bid that exceeds your MAO, right? So it's a strategy that can work. I know people whose basically sole strategy is go to the auction, get a property under contract, and flip it. And in DC, they can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've seen the deals where they've made it.
And a lot of people don't know that it's actually legal to assign an auction contract property.
Is it illegal?
It's legal.
It's legal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's legal.
Yeah, as a wholesale, correct?
They want big deposits to be able to bid.
Yeah, 10%. So you'll know, and that's a good point. You'll know what the bidder is, what the REO lender is planning on as a minimum bid, by virtue of looking at their minimum deposit. So if they put down, it's they have weird numbers, $19,000. You know that they think the value is $190. That's going to be their opening bid. So if you think the property is worth $160 now, pass. right? That's an easy heuristic to filter deals and save some time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you can wholesale REOs.
Yes, you can.
You just need to have a good, strong buyers list to be ready to hurry up and take it on.
Some people, their strategy, get this, is win the bid. There's a period of time in Maryland where a judge has to ratify the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Title is not technically passed to you. They fix up the property, so you don't have to pay the money for the winning bid. You just have your 10%, EMD down payment. They fix up the property in the intervening time. They turn around and market the property. They find an end buyer. So when they've got to put up the rest of the money to buy it from the REO bank, they've already got their end buyer in place, and they're basically doing a simultaneous close.
No, I don't do that anymore.
It may be a little risky, but people do it. People do it.
Yeah, I don't do it anymore.
Potentially a couple months.
It's not legal.
So they have equitable title to the property, Charles, and anything that goes on in the property at that time, including a tornado, a hurricane, or anything else, they assume the risk of loss. The buyer does, not the REO lender after the auction. So in theory, they certainly need to get insurance as soon as they win that bid. But in theory, I mean, they have a right of entry, and they can, okay, all right, well, I'm giving away your secrets now, so I'll shut up. It's only fair, man. Tit for tat.
Next question.
Okay.
So, back to what you're saying, what's the period of time between
Couple months.
winning and not?
Couple months.
Thank you. And secondly, in D.C., they have a lot of laws for renters' rights.
It's terrible.
If you're
a landlord, it's terrible.
If you're doing a multi-unit or a multi-tenant property that you either want to wholesale or you want to do anything with, does that change how you do subject to or any of those contracts? Because I know you have to deal with renters' rights and all of that stuff first. Does that influence how the contract's set up?
So in D.C., I think the answer is going to be no, but in D.C. there's this law called TOPA, and if it's a tenant's right to purchase. And it only applies to multifamily housing. They just changed it last summer where they've excluded single family, subject to a couple of exceptions, so be careful. Generally speaking, though, single family is excluded from TOPA now. So with multifamily, there's different laws, different rules that apply, 2 to 4 units versus 5 and over. And I would encourage, it's technical, it's complicated, there's a tremendous amount of litigation that's on the books for TOPA. If you've got a TOPA deal or thinking about doing a TOPA deal, call somebody who knows TOPA and talk to them first, because it really, and I'm not trying to call somebody, whoever that person is, and get some good advice before you enter into that sort of transaction. It's a great opportunity. Investors use that. You absolutely can wholesale that deal. It's a great strategy. I highly recommend it for DC deals. There's a couple strategies in DC that I would highly recommend, and that is one of the 3. I will not tell you the other 2, but that is one of the 3 in DC specifically. And you could probably guess the other 2 anyway. But that is a good strategy. But your subject to is it's not going to affect subject to, and in theory it shouldn't affect some sort of seller financing. If they're going to finance your deal partly for you, they should, as long as it's not a short sale, you should be okay.
Hey, Brian, do you deal with commercial deals and providing counsel with commercial properties?
I have in the past.
You have in the past?
Sure.
It's something you're willing to do in the future?
I'm willing to do. It's not a central part of my practice, but I used to finance big commercial multifamily buildings, not as a lender, but as an attorney, putting the financing together. And I've certainly done a lot of TOPA work as well for big buildings, and I am representing now tenants associations suing their landlords for mold and that kind of thing, and they almost always have TOPA implications, because when it comes up, it's usually in the context of some sort of sale of the property. Not always, but it frequently is. So I do. So the answer is yes. He's taking a break. You guys are working him. Couple questions back here. Wait, can you wait for the mic? I'm sorry.
A few minutes ago, you were talking about...
Can you speak up?
A few seconds ago, or 5 minutes, you were talking about an auction property where you can start working on the property before you take ownership.
Right.
How does that work? Because you normally...
I can't talk about that anymore. Get the tape. If you have equitable title to a property, whatever the form is, option, purchase at auction, some other form, you have the ability to go in and access that property and do things.
Legally?
I'll leave it at that. You may even have the obligation to do it.
What if the property is occupied by the former tenant? What option do you have to get them out?
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
If the property is occupied by the former tenant, what options do you have to get them out?
Is it in D.C. or Maryland?
Maryland.
Okay. In month-to-month lease?
Former owner. Like, if something went through, say, tax sale, and you bought it at tax sale,
okay,
you show up and the people who used to live there are still there.
They're getting evicted. Yeah, you can evict them. Yes. You got it. There are tenants at sufferance at law. They have no right to be there. They, if they're a prior foreclosed homeowner, you can kick them out. just evict them.
So they don't get so many days or squatters' rights or anything like that?
They don't have any squatters' rights. You can give them a 30-day notice to get them out, but you've got to get them. They have no right to stay. As opposed, let me just be clear, as opposed to a legitimate tenant,
right,
you have to honor the lease of that legitimate tenant. Okay.
How much schooling did it take to become a real estate attorney, and would you advise it for somebody? Is it really advantageous for you?
Well, I went to law school for 3 years. Mm-hmm. You know, the School of Hard Knocks is what gets, you know, the phrase that gets bandied around a lot. I did learn, you know, much of the stuff that I've learned just through experience and thinking about how I want to structure deals. And I will do some reading, and I will do a lot of listening on what other people are doing and what's working and whatnot. I mean, I think you guys are taking a fantastic step by attending Charles' you know, sessions here. You're getting introduced, and maybe even not just introduced, but developed with a lot of, I would call, advanced techniques that you can apply in a lot of different contexts. The key is, once you have all those tools in your tool belt, knowing which tool to pull out for a given job. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
You can learn all this like book knowledge, but it's not going to do you any good if you get it into a deal and you can't, you know, maximize your leverage on, you know, what to do with the deal.
And before I pass the mic, are there any tools in the tool belt that a real estate attorney has that the average investor might not have?
Well, definitely TOPA, for sure TOPA.
Okay.
I think if, you know, and the average investor is, you know, should be up to speed with an option. You just need to get up to speed with options. They're just too flexible and too dynamic not to know what to do with an option.
Thank you.
Land trust, I think that's another thing that you tend to lean on for an attorney. I also would say these subject to deals and PIFA deals, you're really going to want to get somebody else involved.
PIFA, man, that scares me. That scares me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, I have one question. So, have you ever represented a syndication or helped anyone through a syndication, a real estate syndication?
So I used to do mortgage-backed securities. I used to represent, you know, Freddie Mac, Lehman Brothers, Bank of America, Citi, Ginnie Mae. All of those are syndicating mortgages.
Right.
Okay, so what they do is they put, and they can do it with tax-exempt bonds. They can do it with mortgages. They do it with credit card receivables, car notes. They stuff, you know, 100 notes into a trust, and then they syndicate out little bits and pieces of the receivable that's coming in each month. Okay, so I've worked on it extensively for years,
But what about us little people? So if we want to do a multifamily syndication.
So you want to raise money is what you want to do.
Okay.
And yes, I've done that too. And it is a hornet's nest of SEC regulations. You can get yourself into trouble like that. So that would definitely be another thing to add to the list of get yourself hooked up with an attorney, any attorney who is competent on that particular subject matter.
Final question.
When speaking about doing a transaction where you're doing the AB, I'm familiar with trust. Not a lot of people seem to use it here, so I'm questioning what I'm missing when you're doing a double close. Wouldn't it make sense to close in a trust and then just sell the trust versus create another LLC, just charge twice? I mean, if you're selling the trust, you don't have to.
It's the same, right?
Process.
That's right. That's what I call an AB plus deal. So you're selling the beneficial interest in either a trust or an LLC. You're not doing two deals. It's economically efficient. You're not paying two double transfer recordation. You don't need transactional funding. As long as the end buyer's lender is okay with the trust.
That's the key.
That's the key. Yeah. They're usually much more amenable to an LLC transfer than to a trust. Yeah. But depending on the lender, they can get comfortable with the trust as well. We're working on these hard money lenders. We're making some inroads with some of these guys who, the problem is if their attorney tells them that, they're not going to say that they don't understand, but the attorney basically doesn't understand. And so whenever an attorney doesn't understand something, they say it's illegal, unethical, wrong, and whatever, it can't be done.
That sounds like a real estate agent.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So if that's what they're saying to them, then the lender doesn't do it. So we're trying to get more of these hard money lender attorneys signed off on these structures, and it's a slow process, but once they do, you'll see a little bit more.
This is positively the last question. Go ahead.
Really, truly?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard you talking about Securities Exchange Commission and being as though a lot of wholesalers in here, if we're not staying in a deal, we probably won't need this. But if you are staying in a deal for control, would you recommend that we get some knowledge on the UCC, like the Uniform Commercial Code?
So tell me how the UCC is impacting your question.
As far as controlling the actual asset, the property.
So no, you can control the asset without worrying anything about UCC.
All right.
Yeah, that's a separate set of rules for commercial transactions. You're dealing with real estate. You can control the property through a contract. That's all you need to worry about.
Let's give him a big hand.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for me. Get it.
You don't know how much that would have cost you guys. I just want to tell I got it. You can who his father is. Man, that was some good information. Thank you, Brian. Now, let's go into buying, which is going to go into marketing, and we're going to also go into actual subject to a little bit, because Brian covered a lot of it. But the good part about this is that sub 2, and as Brian was saying, and my firm belief is, if you're in it longer than a year, you're in it too long. I have never done a sub 2 deal where I was in it longer than a year. I had a deal on Hillen Road, right across from where Morgan State University is. And this property was a property that we purchased for $65,000. The owner only needed $10,000. But the owner didn't come out and tell us they needed $10,000. The owner just said they wanted to take a trip to Jamaica. So the way I negotiate, my next question was, well, how much does it cost for you to go to Jamaica? It's about $8,000 and some change. So I wanted to make sure she hasn't spending money. So we negotiated the deal so she would get $10,000. And she got $10,000. The property only needed $20,000 worth of work. The value was $175,000. We made $40,000 on the deal. But we took that property for 1-2 months tops, and we sold it a month after. So it was in there for no more than 3 months. Another deal. This deal just closed last week. Come on. Another one of my students, we structured this deal subject to. I want him to tell you about the deal. T, come on up here, bud.
Coming.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be here though.
Frank, break down the deal.
Let's see. I sent out a mailer, and I was just like, well, I'll send it out. Let's see what happens. So it took about 2 months. Then someone finally called me, said they were interested in selling their property. I said, I looked at it. I didn't think it was a deal, but I still called Charles. Mm-hmm. And Charles, he told me it should be a subject to deal. And of course, I said, I don't know what that is. So he broke everything down to me. And then he also said, call Brian. And called Brian, and then he structured everything for me.
The reason why we said call Brian is on the faculty of the mastermind. My students can just call him and he worked with them at no charge other than the paperwork that needs to be done and so on. So let's break down the numbers of how this deal came to be. The actual acquisition price the seller wanted was how much?
$236,000.
Write this down. Seller's getting $236,000. Now, how much does the properties in the area sell for?
It's going for around $340,000, $345,000.
So they sell for $345,000. Seller's getting $236,000. How much repairs are needed?
Probably going to be finished around about $9,000, if that.
$9,000 in repairs. So $236,000 plus $9,000 is how much? $245,000. Now, are you giving the seller back any money?
Yeah, she's getting about $12,000. I'm giving her $12,000.
So $245,000 plus 12 is how much? $257,000. So the difference between $257,000 and $345,000 is how much? So he's going to put in his pocket about $45,000, $50,000 on a subject to. He closed on it with Brian last week. So right now he's doing the actual work. It should be finished when?
We should be finished around Thursday.
So he should be finished the work by Thursday, which means he will be in the deal 2 months, a month of tops. Now, here's the issue. This guy been doing real estate for how many days now?
About 3 months. About little 3.
Now, how many deals you've done?
6.
So I don't want anybody talking about you can't do deals in this business. And he's only doing it 24 hours a week. He works a full-time job. 6 deals in 90 days. Subject to deals, short sale deals. That's why I wanted him to come up here, because everyone in this room can do this business. But he has a plan that he's executing, he's structured. You got a VA now?
Yeah, I have a VA.
Doing cold calling. Postcards work, guys. Even though we're doing cold calling, postcards still work. Don't let any of those gurus tell you that you should not be doing direct mail. There's a method to the madness of doing direct mail now. It's not the exact way we were doing it 5 years ago, but direct mail still works. Yes.
At what point does the seller receive their money when they're doing a subject to deal?
In his deal, the seller will receive his money when he sells the property. So he's put the property on the market to sell next week. When the property sells, the seller receives their money. How much did you give the seller any money up front?
I did. We structured to give her something because she said she needed something. So
and how much was it? $2,000?
About $2,200.
So it was $2,200 up front he gave her at the first closing, and then when he sells the property, she gets another 10, 11?
Yeah, about 10, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
So why not letting seller finance it so that you do everything?
The question is, why not let him seller finance it to the point of holding it, or what?
As in for him to do the work and then to sell it.
Well, here's the reason why. You don't have the security. You buy subject to for the security. You have the deed. You have power of attorney. You can control the funds. You have all that security. I would never buy that much equity in a deal and only control it with a contract. That's the reason for doing the subject to. It gives you the highest level of security in the transaction. But you don't do a subject to for a long period of time. You go with an option for a long period of time. That's the reason why we did it that way. Mm-hmm.
I know you said you sent it through a mailer, but was this like from a list, or how did you find this property?
It was a list I got from Dunhill, which I asked Charles, and he recommended them. And I just
That's enough. Oh, okay. I'll give you that one. Dunhill International. That's another thing. All these gurus is telling you guys about list source and listability. You got to know where the actual money is at. What I like to teach my people is you want to fish where nobody else is fishing at, but where all the fish is at. And what I mean by that is this. With Dunhill, I can get a list where 5 levels deep. You know what I mean when I say 5 levels deep? 5 factors of motivation. For example, absentee owner in a targeted zip code with equity in their property, high income to debt ratio, multiple credit lines. That's 5 levels deep. So when I have that person that calls me back that's 5 levels deep, I'm going to make some money. Because I got all these different levels of motivation. 5 levels of motivation. As opposed to most people where they're doing absentee owner in a zip code with equity. So I like to shoot fish with a shotgun as opposed to just throwing a rod down there. That's the reason why. Dunhill International, that will be a huge source for you guys. Frank, let that one slip away.
Sorry, Charles.
Any other questions? Next question. No, I'm going to show you some. I'm going to show you some resources here that's going to blow your mind. We're going to market.
Do you have your own contractors to help?
Golly!
I mean, somebody has to do the repairs.
Okay. Yes, he has his own contractor doing the repairs. I tell people, if you're doing repairs in your own properties, unless you're a contractor, you're paying yourself too little. Now, he's done some of the minor work.
Yes,
you did a couple of things.
Yeah, I've done some of the work myself because I wasn't trying to spend that much money.
Plus, he also works in a granite company.
Yeah.
So you know what the granite cost him.
Oh, yeah. I'm the granite guy. I can beat anybody's prices. Call me. I take care of you.
So the granite guy. Now, where is my contractor at? Stand up. Jerseys is my rehabber. So, Jerson, give me information. If you want good work, hold on one second.
Hello? Okay. Jay, so if you want to write down my number now, personal cell is 443-623-5126. We are licensed and insured. We got 5 crews. We're expanding to DC soon. Hopefully Virginia within the next month or so, but yeah.
Give me the number one more time.
443-623-5126.
Just call him Jay. Now, last question. What recommendation would you give to someone who's only been in the business for a short period of you, or somebody just starting, for them to move forward? What recommendation would you give them?
Take action. That's my number one, because I used to come to a lot of these meetings, and what I do, I would sit right in the back or right in the middle, and when everything's over, I sneak out. I walk right out. And I'm talking about people try to talk to me. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I got to go. I didn't have to go nowhere. I just didn't want to talk to nobody. That was it. That's all I want to do. I want to hear something, then go home, and then walk around in my room. I'm going to start. So then I finally called Charles, and I became a part of the mastermind. And then I seen a whole lot of people, and they were all trying to do something. And then Charles will hold everybody accountable. And then I said, you know what, I got to do it. I'm actually paying now. Let me do something. And then that's when I finally started. And it started.
Tell them
going.
about the ring.
Oh, and that's another thing. From coming to all his meetings, when he came, he said, you know what, I'm going to tell you one thing that's going to motivate you. Get the money phone. And then everybody was like, what's the money phone? He pulled his phone out. Then he said he had somebody call him. And then he had that ringtone. And I guess it was money, 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 money. And that, I mean,
That's
it was
my
like
ringtone
2 years ago.
When sellers call me from my call rail number, that's my ringtone. If that don't motivate you, I don't know what will motivate you.
That hyped me up so much. Every time I got my own ringtone. And when I hear that phone, I go off, I get smiling, I know money coming. And that's it. So you find something to motivate you.
Thank
if
you,
you
man.
get that, that works.
Thank you, man.
No problem.
So I want everybody to get their own ringtone. That's the key. That's a little secret right there. Because when that phone rings, oh my. Whew. Now, let's go through some marketing. Let's go through the money stuff. Now, here are the stuff. I don't know, guys. I've been moving like a spring chicken today. Golly. My back is working good today. Okay. Yes, go ahead. It's got to lighten up. Give me the balance. Thank you. Thank you so much. I just realized there's one topic I didn't cover yet. You let me know if you want to cover it. It's how you could take your knowledge and make 5, 6 figures in one day or one weekend. You want to know about that one? Yes. Okay. One of the things. That's good. That's good enough. When we're talking about your knowledge, it's worth something. Your information, your knowledge is worth something. One of the businesses that I've been doing for about 7 years, 8 years, a lot of investors, Maryland, D.C., Virginia, around the country, come to my company and say, help me make a product. I want to sell my knowledge. I've worked with some of names that you know. Than Merrill came to my company for marketing when he first came out. Marcel Humphrey, Mark Whitten, Brittany Calloway, Tammy Phelps, Juan Zayas, Valerie Scott, Mike Green. All of them have come to me to say, I want to take my knowledge, Charles, and sell it. When you do this, if you have that knowledge, I'll give you some numbers. I can't tell you their names, but I'll give you some numbers. One young lady we worked with a year and a half ago, in one weekend, she made $162,000. One weekend. Another young lady we worked with in one day, $38,000. A couple that we worked with a month ago, $42,000. Your information packaged the right way can be extremely valuable. And it starts off with knowing how to package that information. So, long story short, there's a number of ways in which you can create a product and monetize that product. One of which is what I'm doing right here. You can invite people to come to a room and record that room. And you could literally make thousands off of that one recording. Hundreds of thousands when you're talking about a year or 2 years. I kid you not. And the process, and I'm going to give you the basic process. That recording, I take that recording, I can take it to a transcriber and have the recording of the video turned into an actual manual. I can take the audio and have it turned into DVD, CD runs, or MP3s so it can play. I can also take those actual things and then create a private Facebook group. So now I'm giving the person who buy my product, I'm giving them a private Facebook group, I'm giving them video, I'm giving them audio, I'm giving them the actual manual, all created from the one content. I can also take that content and create little sub-manuals out of it. All of that has value. And what my company's been able to do was to work with a lot of individuals who say, I have knowledge, I want you to help me create a product around that knowledge. So don't look at what you're doing right now, whether you're a beginner or a experienced investor. Look at the end of what you want to do. Because you have substance. And it doesn't have to be about real estate. It could be of anything that you consider yourself an expert at that you believe is of value to someone. Selling your knowledge is going to be another way you can become in depth with being a transaction engineer. So keep that in mind. This company right here, Ready 24/7 VA. They have cold calling services. They do transaction coordinator, $6 per hour already trained. $7 per hour already trained for real estate investors. So you're talking about, how can I get somebody, I don't have enough time to do the business. I don't have enough time to do the work. One of the best services out there for working with virtual assistants for cold calling and a transaction coordinator. Company name is Ready247VA.com. BatchRealEstateList.com. If you have a list that you need skip traced, this is one of my favorite companies we used to use. We don't use them anymore. We got another company that we also use. You can get up to 65% or more of correct numbers. The industry standard is 60%. So in other words, if your skip tracing isn't giving you the results of at least 60% correct numbers or more, you need to drop that service. This service charges you 9 cents per skip. DataZap charges you 3 cents per skip. DataZap, Z-A-P, D-A-T-A-Z-A-P, DataZap, 3 cents. DataZap.
2 P's at the end, sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, great. Thanks for correcting me.
So,
Yes.
someone asked, is this going to be included with this logic and this?
I can't hear you.
Someone asked if this is going to be included with this logic and this.
Of course. This is you can get all of this. This I can't believe I'm including this one. This is one of my secret weapons. It's called the automated REI. The automated REI. Here's what they do. They can scrape Craigslist and Zillow at a cost of 2 cents and 3 cents. Let me show you what they're scraping. 2 cents and 3 cents per scrape. This file cost me a total of $6. You want to know how we're getting owner-structured finance deal, how we're getting deals by way of subject to, how we're getting rent-to-own guaranteed rent deals? This list is from Zillow. I just did it for one day. They scraped all the data, including telephone numbers. They can do the same thing for Craigslist. All the data, the actual posts, and the telephone numbers. We upload it to our VA. The rest is history. Yes, the automated REI. The automated REI. Now, this one, PropStream. Some of you guys have probably heard of this one. PropStream allows me to do a lot of great things. What I love about their features is the fact that I'm able to get all types of lists. For example, one of my favorite lists is liens. You know how I talk about the water bill liens? Well, we figured out a way inside of PropStream how you could pull that list, and just by doing one little hack, you could actually pull up that same record that's in Maryland and pull up the actual judicial case of that record and see the actual lien and everything. I don't think anybody knows how to do that yet. But we've hacked the system so that whenever we pull up liens inside of PropStream, because what it says is abstract judgment. It doesn't tell you what the issue is. We can now do this one little hack and then go inside judicial case search and pull up the whole case and give you everything as to what type of lien that is and so on. Here's the hack. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. I'm sorry, I got so much stuff as far as passwords go. I have no idea what my password is. Yes. No, would you say the PropStream go into your Podio? No. So, let's say I want to do a search of liens for Baltimore City, properties that have liens on them. Baltimore. And it got a total of 18,967 properties. I click on it. It's going to show me them right there on the right-hand side. I'm just going to show you one of the many features. So I can go all the way down, and I'm looking for lien amounts that's excess of $10,000 or more. If I don't find one on the first page, I'm going to just go one page more because I got a total of 1,800 pages here, guys. So I'm just going to show you any one. Well, let's just stay this way. I can actually pull up this record. And you see where it says lien details right here? Click on it. And it gives you the actual lien. Where is it at? Pending, lien amount. Denver document code, lien amount. State of Maryland. It's a Maryland Central Collections. Right here. You see this number right here? That's a case number. However, you can't put that case number in judicial case search, because what you want to do is actually put the case number in judicial case search and pull up the whole lien itself. To make it work in judicial case search, all you have to do is add a 0 to the first number. That's it. Add a 0 to the first number, you'll be able to pull that whole record up inside a judicial case search and see the actual type of lien and so on. So that's the hack that you can do inside of this program, correlating it with judicial case search. In the front, that's correct. Yep, judicial case search. Yes. Because the majority of the comps, actually all the comps, I talked to the owner. Because what we're doing is, since I've used PropStream, I told him I wanted to sign up as an affiliate. So one of the things he said he would let me do, if you guys wanted to use PropStream for free, they normally give you a 7-day trial. He would give you a 14-day free trial. So let me know if you want that. I'll send you the information where you have a 14-day free trial of using that. And it's for free. 14 days free. After that, it's $97 a month. But in 14 days, you will get way more value than you would ever believe, because that's what we're using. I've only been using PropStream now for 4 months. I've gotten 2 deals out of it. One was a wholesale deal, and one was an actual deal we did a rent-to-own on. But this is a beast. Yes.
Case search.
Yes.
Exactly. Where am I going?
Judicial Case Search is a website online. You just type in Judicial Case Search for Maryland, and it'll come up on Google, the first search term. And then you just go there, and you're able to put in case numbers of judicial cases. As a matter of fact, that's another hack, guys. You can actually pull up foreclosures, divorce. You can pull up all kinds of different eviction filings, all kinds of different cases right on the top of your computer all day long, just looking at all these different cases, looking at the plaintiffs, and then basically contacting or skip tracing the information you pull up. But the website is called Judicial Case Search, and it's free, no charge. Yes, you just put a 0 in front of the numbers that's already there on the front.
You're talking about case searches somewhat similar, but not in regards to probate. Is that something that we can get here as well?
Now, Baltimore City has stopped allowing you to go down to the Baltimore City courthouse to do probate. You guys know that, right? You can't pull the probate down in Baltimore City anymore. So what you have to do is you have to do a little bit end around. There's a couple of services. Those services like, what's the one, Malik? Probates, what's it called? Yeah, Foreclosure Daily. How much they charge? Normally it's around $2 something a month, though. No, all the leads. I'm taking all the leads. Yeah, all the leads is $2 something a month. You can do a workaround, but it's going to be a little time consuming. The workaround is the daily record. The daily record would cost you about $86 a quarter. What was it? 6 months. But they have the probate filings in there. And the daily record. Now, you have to cross-check the daily record with the actual real property search website. So that's where your VA comes into play. Because you're not going to find all the details inside of the daily record. You're going to have to do a cross-check with real property search. But Maryland and Baltimore City has stopped allowing people to go down to the courthouse to pull probate now.
Do you know when they stopped that?
About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Corey, when did it stop?
It stopped about 6 months ago.
6 months?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I found out about a week and a half.
No, that's just in Baltimore City.
Baltimore County still allows you to do it.
Yeah, Baltimore County still allows you to do it, but not Baltimore City.
So you said cross-reference it with property search.
Real property search. Now, here's another secret weapon that we're sharing today, because today is the day for giving. One of the hottest marketplaces right now for owner-structured finance deals, selling your properties and creating a buyer's list is Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace. It's on fire. Now, what this is the camera still running? Oh, shoot. This guy here has created a bot. A bot is an app that you put on your phone. You put on your computer. You download, put on your computer. And what the app does is auto post for you 24 hours, 7 days a week for you on Facebook Marketplace. You could post your deals every hour, and it look like if it's from a human, you can use what's called proxies, change the IPs, and you could literally corner whatever you want to do on Facebook using this bot. He sets it up for you. You just have to put in your images for your posts, your actual account for your Facebook, and you're going to create dummy Facebook accounts. That's what you have to do. And then you'll post your deals, you'll post your properties, you'll post your leads, you'll post whatever service you have in there at a cost of $17. $17. $17. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know why I didn't make that clickable for you guys, because I should have made it clickable so we can go to the webpage. But if you want, just drop me an email at charles@realdealmeetup.com, and I'll send you this exact link. charles@realdealmeetup.com. Not only does he do it for that, he can also do it for automating stuff on your computer. I mean, bots are everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I got to get you that. Like I said, I don't know why I didn't make this a clickable link so I can take you to the page. And we're coming down to the finish line. This is the current dollar I use in our company, up to 300 calls per hour. We usually do between 10 to 12,000 calls per month, what we're using for Mojo Dollar, at a cost of $198 a month. I found a new dollar that I haven't used yet. I'm going to look at it. Any marketing strategy that we do, we look at it for 3 months before we adopt it. So in other words, we know so much about our different marketing strategies. One of the things you want to do, and I don't know why I didn't talk about this earlier, is that every marketing strategy that we do, we have a separate telephone number for that strategy. Bandit signs, dialing for dollars, driving in the neighborhoods, absentee owners, expired listings. Everybody has their own telephone number. And the reason you're doing that is because you want to know every last number to your leads down to the point of the cost per lead. So here's what we're doing. We're measuring how many calls that came in from that lead, how many calls that came in where the person had a house for sale, how many people that had a house for sale that we actually set up appointment, how many appointments that we went to where we actually put the property under contract, and last but not least, how many contracts did we go to that we actually closed on. And we do that on a weekly basis. I get the report from my project manager who says this is what our numbers look like, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the week, we go over all the numbers. Regardless of the size of your business, you need to be doing that. Because you have to determine what marketing strategies are working, what marketing strategies you need to double up on, what marketing strategies you may need to take money from, what marketing strategies maybe you need to eliminate altogether. Like I mentioned earlier, you have to be doing at least 4 marketing strategies a month or more. Now, the problem is, when I say 4 marketing strategies a month or more, the first thing most of you guys will think is, well, I'm going to do this, 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 I'm going to do this. Wrong. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I want you to add 1 marketing strategy, get it up and running, and make sure it's running well. Then add a second marketing strategy to that marketing strategy. Get that up and running. Now you got 2 strategies up and running. Then add a third. Get those 3 up and running. Now you have 3 strategies up and running. If you take the approach of trying to do 4 marketing strategies at one time, it will be a situation where you'll get frustrated. I want you to master that marketing strategy to the point where you can do it in your sleep and then add a second strategy. By the end of a month to 6 weeks, you should have 4 strategies up and running. That's how you properly indoctrinate your business with adding marketing strategies, not just doing them all at once, one at a time, and then make that strategy up and running. What do I call up and running? I mean being able to measure results, being able to do it proficiently, where you're not crossing or running over yourself. Yes.
Can you do that website again for people that have knowledge in the mortgage industry or real estate industry for script?
I'll get that to you. For the mortgage industry, I'll get that to you. One of the strategies that we didn't talk about, because it's about notes, and I really don't buy notes, but I have a good friend of mine that do. But it goes into the level of subject twos. So I kind of was like, should I talk about this or shouldn't I talk about it? But it's so powerful, I'm going to talk about it just for this brief minute. One of the things that you can do, for those of you that have money, do you not know that you could buy the note of a property that's going through default on a second mortgage? Now, what's the risk? The person's second mortgage is going into default. Their first mortgage is fine. What's the risk of buying the second mortgage note if it's going into default? Huh? Well, let's put it like this. Let's say that the person has, let me give you a scenario. This is a true scenario. $140,000 first, a $40,000 second going in default. Now you got $180,000. Property is only worth $190,000. What would you do? Wow. She said the right word. Yes. Yes. I would go after the note to try to buy it at a discount, and then I would foreclose on the property. You can actually buy a $40,000 note for $10,000 because it's a second. And the second position is afraid that if there's something happens, I may get wiped out. So you could buy a second that's for 40 for 10. Now, you can foreclose on the second and now assume the first subject to. Yep. And it's legal. It's legal. Yep. Now, think about this. What did you just do? You created $30,000 worth of equity too. Because you got the second for 10. So now it's legal for you to do that, and your first has no issues with you taking it over subject to, because you did it in a foreclosure position.
Well, what motivates the first position to do that?
The first didn't do it. What do you mean, what motivates them to do it? All they care about the mortgage getting paid. And there's no qualifying. You're in a lien mortgage position. Oh, you have to go through. The question is, what about the paperwork and stuff? Servicing company will do that for you. You have to go through a servicing company. I got a friend of mine named Mike Rosecca. Look him up on Facebook. Mike Rosecca. He's out of New Jersey. Are you going to ask a 9th grader how to spell Rosecca? Okay, R-U-S. What's it? I-C-A. That don't sound right, but I'll go with it. R-U-S. Go ahead. Mike Rosecca. But anyway, Mike buys hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of notes. No, I know what I'm saying. Hundreds of thousands worth of notes every year.
And on Facebook, he's Mike Russ.
Yeah, on Facebook, he's at Mike Russ. R-U-S. I can spell that one. R-U-S. Mike R-U-S.
It's R-U-S-C-I-C-A.
Yeah, R-U-S-C-I-C-A. R-U-S-C-I-C-A. He was supposed to come down this week, but unfortunately he had a situation at home, and him and his wife stayed home. So I wanted you guys to meet him this weekend. But anyway, there's no one that I know better with notes than him. And for years, he was trying to get me to do notes. Let me take that back. I actually did one note deal in my 30 years of doing investing. You want to hear about it? Yeah. Okay. One of my mentors before he passed away, his name was Jack Miller. Jack was a master at getting everybody who was anybody that was doing creative stuff down to Florida, because he was the guy that the gurus went to learn from. Jack could, man, this guy had so much knowledge. You would have to go to 3, 4, 5 of his workshops to pick up one piece of information. I'm exaggerating, of course, but the point I'm trying to make is that the knowledge was so deep, man, what he was teaching all the people that would come down there to learn from Jack Miller. So one night, we all left out from the workshop, and he has what's called a wine and cheese party at his house. So at that wine and cheese party, guy from Texas pulled me and my partner up. At the time, my partner was Rob Bostic. Our company was Win-Win Property Solutions. He pulled us up and said, "You guys from Baltimore, aren't you?" I said, "Yep, we're from Baltimore." One of my habits is when you trying to build rapport with a seller, you mimic that seller. So sometimes it comes out of me when I'm talking to somebody. So next thing you know, I had a sling in my mouth when I was talking to him. So, yeah, I did. I'm truthful. And he said, "I like you." That's exactly what he said. "I like you." So he said, "I got these 10 notes in Baltimore on these properties. Would you like to have them?" So first I looked at the way he said, "I like you." And I didn't know, was it positive or was it negative? That was my first thought. But then it was positive. He said, "Well, how much do they cost?" $10,000. 10 properties. 10 properties. He had the notes on all of them. And he only wanted $1,000 per property. Here's the catch. You had to buy the notes before you left out that bar that night. Or at Jack's house that night. You had to write a check. So, me and Rob, we huddled to the side. "Charles, what you think, man?" "Well, hey, $10,000? That's a pair of shoes for Tammy. I don't know." No, I'm just joking. She didn't hear that. $10,000? Okay, well, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. Yeah. I never told Tammy, but yeah, we can do this. So we bought the notes, the mortgages on the property. Next thing you know, we got the actual properties. We went driving around the properties. We were excited. We knew some of the neighborhoods. We knew that some of the neighborhoods quite a few of the neighborhoods were war zones. One of the neighborhoods, the minute you got out the street, it was a chalk sign. And then you looked up and the house wasn't even there. Oh, well, shucks, y'all. What did we do? What did we do? Another house, another one where we got to the property, and literally, it was a front door with a third of the wall. I have no way in hell knowing how a third of a wall could stay up by itself. Oh my God, we was like, man, what the hell is going on here? Long story short, 3 of the properties actually sold. We made $85,000 on the deal. The other properties was junk too. But out of the 3 that sold, we made $85,000 on it. And that's the only time I bought notes, and that's the only time I said I would ever allow myself to be that scared. And I've never purchased notes anymore after that point. That was the only time I buy notes. Now, call tools. This is what I said as one of the ones we're using or going to start using. You know, I told you that Mojo Dial gives you 3 lines and you can do 300 calls per hour. Call tools give you 10 lines. 10. And they have a lot of more features than Mojo sells. And it costs less. Only $119 per month. So we're testing that right now to see if this is going to substitute for our Mojo. And that's my presentation. Now, this is the good part. This is the good part. This is where you can ask me any questions about anything we talked about for the next 15, 30 minutes. And as a bonus for each of you guys for coming today, I'm going to actually give you the video recordings. So let's thank our cameraman, Leslie. Any questions? Yes.
Okay. So I have a seller that's going for auction next Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The auction is actually on the HELOC,
Mm-hmm.
right? So her thing was, oh, I'm not in a hurry because I'm up to date on my purse, right? Then I said, nope, they can tow foreclose on me. So you talked about notes. Let's say I wanted to purchase a note on that second. Would I contact the bank?
You would contact the actual note holder. The way you can get to the note holder is by the substitute of trustee. That would have been the person that would have filed the actual note for the HELOC company. And then you just basically work your way up to the ladder and see if they're interested in selling the note.
So I should call Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah, Charles, looking at commercial property, and I was looking at LoopNet and some of the commercial property websites.
Yep.
What I'm noticing is all of them seem to have a bidding process. Could you explain that bidding process and if there's a way we could get rid of the bidding process? Because I'm scared to bid on a property instead of making an offer. How does that work?
I wish I could. Unfortunately, I don't play in the game of LoopNet. Now, I'll tell you who made this guy right there. He does a lot of stuff on the commercial side. But I don't play with LoopNet. I have no idea how you would work with that. If you're interested in the mastermind, just go to the website, moremastermind.com, put in an application. I'm not selling anything, so I'm not pushing that. So it's moremastermind.com. Moremastermind.com. Come on, give me some questions, guys. You got left time here. Go. Do I buy properties from out of the country? No. My wife and I are going to be building a house. Where at, Tammy? Barbados. Well, I tell you who do buy properties out of the country. One of my actual students, Nicole Amerson. You know Nicole? Nicole has over 4,700 doors. I'm talking about storage facilities. I'm talking about multifamily properties. I'm talking about commercial properties. I'm talking about mobile home parks. So Nicole could tell you a lot about that strategy. I'll get you her information. She runs a meetup in Timbuktu restaurant. It's the 4th Wednesday of every month. She and James are a beast. In fact, I'm working with them. She was one of the examples I talked about who we worked with to create a product for. We did her product that she's selling right now. Yes?
We have an event coming up in September, but it's more so around IRA, wealth, stuff like that. How can we get your songs?
Just give me a call. If you're interested in having my company help you guys create a product, hit me at 443-925-2860. Also, if you have any bad deals that you don't think are deals and you want to joint venture with me, hit me at 443-925-2860. That's 443-925-2860. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
When I cross-reference, I don't see it on option, so I wanted to be sure as to how verifiable that information is as far as correct information. So
you got me on that one. I have no idea on that one. Victor.
Yes, sir. The question I had is, I know you recommend implementing 4 marketing strategies and kind of, working your way up to the 4.
Right.
For newer investors, do you have any particular
I knew you were
avenues
asking
that you
that.
recommend one over the other?
I knew you were going to say that one. You guys want to know of a marketing strategy that we're doing, and we've been doing it for almost 5-6 years now, that generates between 10 to 12 deals for us per month? I'm sorry, I lied. It's per year, not per month. 10 to 12 deals per year. You may have seen this one. It's I call it my mad driving for dollars strategy. You want to know what it is? Okay. This is the strategy. Write this down because it's a lot. The first part is you want to target the neighborhoods that you're going to do driving for dollars in by properties that have had cash purchase sales and also by first-time home buyers. So in other words, you want to get a list of properties or a list of zip codes based on cash purchase sales, the highest amount of cash purchase sales, and cross-reference that with the highest amount of first-time home buyers. That's how you determine which zip codes you're going to drive. Now, once you have that list, you're going to do this. You're going to drive those neighborhoods no less than 3 hours per day, no less than 2 days per week. No less than 3 hours per day, no less than 2 days per week. Now, here's what you're doing when you're driving those neighborhoods. You got to immerse yourself in the neighborhood. And here's what I mean by that. You're going to be going to any open houses that happen in that neighborhood. You're going to be going to businesses that's going on in that neighborhood. You're going to be going to neighbors that's going on in that neighborhood. You're going to entrench yourself in that neighborhood for those 3 hours per day, no less than 2 hours, no less than 2 days per week. Now, once you do that, and here's the secret sauce. When you're driving the neighborhoods and you identify the worst house in that neighborhood, you're going to get out and you're going to knock on that door. And then you step back. And this is what you say. Keep this in mind, because this is the $1 million script. Hello, is this the homeowner? Oh, my name is Charles Blair. I work with Chucky Buy Lucky Houses. And on average, we're buying 3 to 5 properties in your neighborhood. I'm just wanting to find out if you guys are interested in selling, or you know anybody that's interested in selling in this neighborhood. Oh, you don't? Well, you wouldn't have to be interested in selling, would you? Oh, you're not? Well, here's my flyer. I don't give them a business card. My flyer, if you look on the back of it, it tells you that we pay anywhere between $500 to $3,000 finder's fee for house information. Thank you. And then we knock that whole block, and we don't stop or come back home until we hand out 50 flyers. No less than 50 flyers per day. You're going to do an average of 200 per month. I'm sorry, 400 per month. So, this is the key. You will get buyers. You will get sellers. You will get contractors. You will get agents, all in your actual database by doing this. And you should average anywhere between 10 to 12 houses per year doing exactly how I told you to do that. And the reason why we don't go to a homeowner and ask them straight up, are they interested in selling their property? Because you don't want that homeowner to think you're targeting them. So the verbiage is, we buy on average 5 to 7 houses per month. I want to know if you happen to know anybody in the neighborhood that may be interested in selling. Oh, and by the way, you wouldn't happen to be interested in selling your property, would you? That's how we slide it in. Yes. I'll give you a copy of my flyers. Email address is charles@realdealmeetup.com. The way our flyers look, it is fantastic. We get them from a company called Lady Bird Printing. The cost is $5,000, and I call them flyers, but they're actually door hangers. So it's actually 5,000 door hangers for a cost of $347. 5,000 will go a long way. Yes. Lady Bird Printing. Mm-hmm.
What are your action plans, action plans?
The question is, I just got Mojo, and I'm trying to follow up with the actual follow-up campaign or follow-up script.
Just after your steps that you go through once you start contacting your seller. So
Well, you mean what you say?
What I'm sending out, like on what I'm following up.
Great question. Okay. In our business, here's what we're doing. The question is on Mojo, how do you work your Mojo cold calling system? What we're doing is on the first week, we have to touch that homeowner 3 times. 3 touches. Remember I told you most people don't even do 3 touches in 3 months? The first week, we got to touch them 3 times. And those 3 touches, the first touch is a cold call. The second touch is a ringless voice message. The third touch is a cold call. 3 times in 1 week. If we don't reach them those 3 times in 1 week, we're reaching them every week after that with 1 call or a text message until the person responds back. Once they respond back, we put them in a month-to-month follow-up campaign if they're not ready to sell. That's the process we're doing with Mojo. And everything is automated through our Podio system. Yes.
So you eventually about to start trying to flip property.
Okay.
Now you try to get funding. You have a couple of people call doing that. What do you think the script would be to like introduce yourself?
I'll give you the script. I have a deck that I gave my people a while back. It's called Questions You Ask to Hire Your REI Power Team. Send me an email and I'll send that to you.
Private lenders?
For private lenders, that's a different story. No. Private lenders, I don't touch that one. And the reason behind it is you're talking about you got to have anywhere between 7 to 10 touches in order to make a commitment for them to lend. So I don't even touch the private lender side of it. Just because like they talked about with the SEC situation. I don't touch with the private lenders. I do everything with hard money, and I do everything with people that come to me and say, let's do something together. Yep. Yes?
Cost estimating websites. Do you know any offhand?
Say it again?
Cost estimating?
Cost estimating websites. There's something called Rehab Valuator. I hear a lot of people talking about that. Not to mention PropStream has it built in. PropStream. PropStream has it built in, a cost estimator feature where you rehab costs. I keep telling you guys, if you send me an email, I will send you my link for PropStream, and it will give you 14 days free trial instead of the 7 days they normally give you. Charles@realdealmeetup.com. Charles@realdealmeetup.com. And there's no obligation. If you don't like it, you don't sign up. But I'm just telling you right now, all the stuff that it does, half of you are going to want to sign up. At $97 a month, it's a no-brainer. Next. I'm on the roll.
Questions you asked, what? Questions you asked about
REI Power Team. Yes. The questions you ask to interview your REI Power Team. I got a whole sheet. Questions you want to ask if you got a good contractor. Questions you want to ask for title company. Questions you want to ask for real estate agent. Questions you want to ask for, all kinds of people.
How do you get in touch with different hard money lenders?
Oh, that's a good question, and it's an easy one to answer. I would tell you the grassroots way is just to reach out to the most popular bulletin boards. they're going to let you know who people were using, hard money lender. I love a company called Pimlico Funding. I also love my man Arnold here, if I can remember his name.
Website is customer first. Customer spelled out one SE online.com.
Say that again.
Say it again.
Spelled out.
Customer first.
Online.com.
Customerfirstonline.com. Customerfirstonline.com. Oh, one ST is the way you spell first. Okay. I had to make it difficult. Any other questions? Yes.
So I just purchased a single family home.
Uh-huh.
And I want to do
Okay.
So can I use the rehab evaluator to give me an amount, a broad amount about how much y'all spend?
Well, it's going to get. I would rather. The question is, I just purchased a home. Now I need to get that property rehab. I would rather you go through the process of finding a good qualified contractor for that aspect of it. Because now you're looking at a finite number that you have to say that this contractor is up to. Or you could use my contractor, Jerson, right there in the back. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a recommendation for a home inspection company?
Home, I sure do. Her name is B. What's the telephone? You got her already? Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yes. Say it again. Once I pull the water leads, what I'm doing is skip tracing them so I can get the telephone numbers. Because all I got is addresses. Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Everything that's going on with the city right now, is everything still accurate?
Oh yeah, they backed up to speed now. Yep. Is that all, guys? If you're interested in the cruise, you got my beautiful wife right there on the side, realdealmeetupcruise.com. And here's the home inspecting person information, 410-905-8133. B Home Inspection, 410-905-8133. Oh, okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. And B's been around for years. Thank you. Yes. The person says, the question is, what happens if you knock on the door and the person says, yes, I do want to sell my home? I say, okay, well, let's go inside and let's make this happen. So I go inside, I walk through the property, I talk twice as less than what the person is talking. In other words, I'm listening. I'm just listening because 9 times out of 10, the seller is going to tell you how to buy their property. I'm going to tell you that right now. They will tell you, broken down, how to sell their property. Ask this man right here. He just got cashed a $33,000 check from a wholesale deal. What was it, wholesale? A wholesale deal, building rapport. Building rapport with a seller, I'm going to tell you right now, that's your key. Forget about learning what to say or having all these things you need to say. You want to get the questions answered. But the key is get the questions answered in a conversational style. That's the key. Have a conversation with them. Don't just ask questions. That's where most new investors fail because they're asking questions as opposed to having a conversation. People will trade equity to people who they like, know, and trust all day long. And that's what you should be concentrating on, getting that person to like, know, and trust you. That's going to be your key. Mm-hmm. Yes. The way you get a copy of the video, if you gave us your information on those cards, we'll be reaching out to you with the information for the actual videos. Well, you can make sure the information is clear. Yeah, just take a picture with my name and type my name in it. Going once, going twice. Let's go home.
Hello.
Thank you, man.